Howdy guys, and welcome to another Ride and Talk. We're out here on the 79 bike Falcon GT and the 2026 Ventus One. We came to another local spot. It's just a little loop in the woods. Nothing other than just kind of a flowy little fun, about a mile and a half loop through the woods. Gonna do a little more while we ride, just going to do a little comparison talk between the Falcon GT and the Ventus One, and just discuss kind of the value proposition of the Ventus One in general. Ahead of us we have Captain Goober in his he calls it his Halo outfit, but I just call it his Goober suit. But anyways, we're just going to kind of the primary subject today is going to be the Ventus One and its value proposition and how I feel like it compares as a purchase to the Falcon GT. These, as most of you will already know, the Falcon GT and the Ventus One both share the same chassis. It is the 79 bike Falcon chassis, which also shares most of its geometry and characteristics with the Sur-Ron Lightbee chassis, though it is reinforced quite considerably. However, the chassis is basically where the similarities end, with the Ventus One being powered by a 72 volt 50 amp hour pack and a VTB power system pushing 28 kilowatts, updatable to I believe 32 or 33 kilowatts with an over-the-air firmware update. And the Ventus One features Arfloxa, whatever it's called, front and rear suspension, while the Falcon GT rides on Fast Ace LHX12 RC gravity fork and your standard kind of off-the-shelf stock Fast Ace rear shock, and I believe I have gone the incorrect direction. I think I zigged when I was supposed to zag. The trail system here has changed a little bit since the last time we were back here. These little sub routes weren't here before. This was mostly just a loop. So I clearly chose the wrong path. Okay. Guess we'll just keep going. Didn't mean to leave him this badly. Oh. So anyways, back on topic. The Falcon GT has 16.8 kilowatts of power output, and it is powered by 72 volt 40 amp hour battery. Depending on, we haven't weighed them ourselves, depending on where you get your specifications from, they either weigh essentially the same thing or the Ventus One is 10 pounds heavier. I tend to believe the Ventus One is 10 pounds heavier because when I load them in my truck, the Ventus One feels much heavier. It feels noticeably harder to load. There he is. We found him. Beep, beep. Hello. I went the wrong way. Anyways, while we wait on Captain Slow, so long story short, we have a 28 kilowatt, between 150 pound and 160 pound bike on the same chassis as the Falcon GT, with 28 kilowatts versus 16.8 kilowatts. We have fast stage gravity versus our Floxa. The difference on paper is even larger than it sounds. These two bikes have very, very different handling characteristics. The Falcon GT is a very playful, poppy mountain bike-like riding experience, while the Ventus One is a much more hardcore dirt bikey feel. It's more locked in. It's less willing to turn. We're going to swap bikes now. And it's just the more conventional, yes, it's still a flicky lightweight bike, but out of the box it has a much more conventional dirt bike feel. This bike is completely box stock. I don't ride this one as much, so I don't remember the settings. Our Falcon GT is stock, aside from a 1-inch drop crown and grips. Other than that, it is completely stock today. I do sometimes run a 21-inch front wheel, but we are bone stock today other than the drop crown. As they come out of the box, the ergonomics are very similar. They, I believe, have the same model handlebar. They come with the same grips. Garbage grips. Trash. Throw them away. Don't even ride the bike with them. He hasn't got the grips yet for his. The one significant difference is the bars are cut shorter, about an inch shorter on the Ventus One Plus versus the Falcon GT, and that is a very noticeable difference. It sounds like nothing, but it does make a big difference. The other ergonomic difference is the Ventus One comes with beautiful milled pegs, Warp 9 style pegs. They're I'm sure they're a third-party off-brand, but they're very similar to the Warp 9 peg. Both bikes have excellent brakes. I prefer the feel of the Falcon GT brakes over the Ventus brakes, but they both have similar power and performance. And again, this is just a significantly more conventional dirt bike experience, considering that they're literally built on the same platform. We got to turn this up a little bit. I think we're gonna start on 4. Let's go. Immediately, this bike is less eager to turn. It's much more locked in, and I attribute most of that to the wider, heavier wheel set. And immediately, I miss my brakes. These are much spongier and just less precise feeling, but they're fine. They stop just fine. There's no disadvantage in power. They're going to stop the same. But, however, the most immediate impression when you jump from this bike, the other one is, holy shit, this thing's fast. The power of this bike is just unbelievable. It has enough power to loft the wheel at essentially any speed. It's just astonishing. I've ridden a lot of high-performance stuff over the years, and this is, to me, the most impressive thing I've ever ridden. Yeah, it's probably not faster than a 450 dirt bike, but it certainly feels faster, just due to the lightweight and how much you have to manage it, because it's essentially crack the throttle and wheelie or spin the wheel, manage that, and then it begins to do the opposite. You land the wheelie, it spins the wheel, you stop the wheel spin, it starts the wheelie. Very entertaining, very busy. rider management experience. But it's always controllable. It never feels unrideable. Never feels wildly overpowered, except sometimes in the top power level. It can be a little unwieldy in mode 5. I can very obviously go faster on this bike versus the GT, but that's more down to the superior tire and wheel set from the factory. The front tire on this bike just tracks much, much better. It just does what you expect it to do more consistently, but again, that's just down to front tire grip. God, this thing's fast. It never ceases to amaze me how quick this bike is. But also how comfortable and controllable it is. Yes, as I said, it does require a bit of throttle management, but the chassis is just so well behaved that I never feel sketched out. And you can really lean this bike into the corner a lot more aggressively without washout out of the box. I know that ECR and other reviewers have complained about the front wheel on this bike, and I question if it's the same front wheel for 2026, because I have an MX-34 on hand ready to go on my Falcon GT, and the tire size and tread size is not massively different between the MX-34 and this stock Ventus One tire. I know the MX-34 is a much better tire, but it doesn't seem, contrary to the ECR review, it doesn't seem like I'm gaining a lot of size with the MX-34. Just so much more planted and confidence in expiring it and cornering at speed. This thing just never gets old with the power. Ooh, there's a lot of pine straw on the ground. A lot of throttle management going on to stay upright. And we're kind of rutting. God! If you've never ridden anything like the Ventus One, you need to try it. It is the singular most impressive, violent, exciting thing that I have ever ridden, and I've ridden a lot. I've had built Banshees, TRX 250Rs. Spent a lot of time on 450s. It just nothing really feels like this. I'm sure the start guys are are laughing at me, but I haven't had a chance to ride that. But I have ridden a 40 horse, 4-speed electric dirt bike that was pretty quick, and it didn't do this. It just didn't have this level of just enthusiasm and just happiness about it. Sorry for long-winded rambling again. As you probably have guessed, I'm new to this. I've been more of a streamer in the past. My YouTube background's mostly sim racing. But I've done a lot of motorsport involved and motorsport adjacent activities in my life, and anybody considering getting into the e-moto scene, just do it. I'm nearly 40, and this is probably the most enjoyable activity I've ever been a part of. It's just opens up so many more opportunities to ride. It's so clean. I keep my bike in a spare bedroom in my house, and it doesn't bother anybody, doesn't make a mess. I don't bother anybody riding. We don't make any noise. 90% of the time, no one even notices we're there. And the riding experience, it's just something that doesn't get focused on enough in videos. These bikes are different. It's different than riding a full-size bike. I, at 40, don't feel overly confident on a full-size bike anymore. I don't want to get hurt. When I had my full-size bike, I managed to injure myself like 3 times in 2 months. And I feel like I can ride these. I feel safer. I feel more confident. Not necessarily a good thing. But I just enjoy the riding experience so much more. They're more forgiving. They're more playful. They open up so many more opportunities to ride. And if you just have any inkling to get outside and enjoy something motorsport or power sport related, I just don't think it gets better than this. Let's see if I can rip my arm open again. We missed it. I just can't express how much fun these things are. Let's wait on little bro and be polite. I think we've lapped him about 5 times. But this thing is just out of this world. I bought the Falcon GT in September, and my brother purchased this bike just before Christmas, and I was more content with the purchase of this bike than any purchase I had ever made. I could not have been happier with it, and I still love it. Absolutely, it's still my favorite thing that I've ever purchased for myself. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't regret not getting the Ventus One. The price difference, what you get for the price difference, is pretty astonishing in terms of capability and performance. If I had that amount of power in that bike with an MX-34 on the front, that basically ends that conversation, because I actually prefer the characteristic of the chassis here with the suspension, and honestly I prefer the look of this bike quite a bit better. I like a little dash of color than the blacked out bike, but these are still a beautiful machine. But to get to that point, I'm looking at a bare minimum of $2,500, and probably a lot more than that by the time I get a battery of equal capacity and a controller with equal power output to the Ventus One. Ignore the squeaking of the GT. The belt's dry. It needs a little bit of dry lube on it. But the value proposition of this bike is just bar none the best in the industry. I know you've got the SR, you've got the EWatt 2.0. None of those bikes, neither one of those bikes are as refined as this machine. This bike is 30 pounds lighter than an SR with superior suspension, same brakes, more power, and a better behaved chassis for the same amount of money, or maybe slightly more. I just don't see a reason to purchase an SR over this bike. And then the EWatt's just a very unrefined machine. Every review you see, it breaks. It's got plenty of power. It's got more power than this bike from the factory. Got an excellent battery. Actually has the gravity fork. Actually has my preference in forks. But the geometry of that bike again, to clarify, I haven't ridden that bike, but the geometry of that bike, based on everything I've heard, just is inferior to this machine. It's not as planted. It's not as well behaved. and the off-flows suspension package, which I need to clarify. I prefer the fork on this bike, and I prefer the poppiness of this bike. The R-Flosia rear shock is hands down better than the stock Fast Ace shock on this bike. It's not close. It's a much better rear shock. The traction and drive out of corners on the Ventus One, while a lot of that is due to the bigger, let's see if we can get a little better shot of this tire, due to the bigger, fatter lug tire with a bit more meat. Yes, it has more traction due to that, but the rear end stays planted in the ground better on the Ventus One, just solely due to a better rear shock. Again, long story short, rambling video. Should you go with a Ventus One over the Falcon GT or the rest of the category? If you have the money to pay the difference, if you have the money to spend the extra, absolutely, it is a better bike. It is the superior machine, and it's the one I wish that I had gotten. However, if you are a trail rider, which is essentially all I do, this bike is every bit as capable on a trail, and in many ways more fun out of the box. If you're solely a trail rider, I don't know that I would say that this is outright the better buy. You're saving over $1,000 by going with the Falcon GT. If it's solely for trail riding, the Falcon GT is a phenomenal value proposition that it's basically just a toss-up. It's, do you want to save the money? You're not missing enough with the Ventus One. For pretty much anybody else, for street riding, for long distance rides, high-speed flow trail, the Ventus One is just untouchable in my opinion. I hope you've enjoyed riding along with us today. We'll be putting out more content regularly on the channel in the coming weeks. Hope to get some more well-edited, more well-structured videos coming soon. We just are trying to get the infrastructure set up. But thank you for tuning in and have a great day.